Okay, everybody is going into the clouds. Sweet dreams. Okay. Um, Given that, maybe I should run the slide presentation once again, so everybody can see, so it could be a part of the record. And if you want to say anything while it's on, Robert, you should feel free, I think.
Well, it's stirring up a lot of emotion, so I can't, and
That's all right, Robert. Go ahead. Emotions are good.
I know, but they're racing. The covers are racing ahead of the, and each one was an amazing, amazing adventure, filled with anxiety and pleasure and achievement and everything. It's quite incredible. We really
A lot of years.
Yeah.
Then Nieves, haven't seen her in a while.
Okay, I'm going to stop the share here. And Shelley, I don't know, I didn't see Shelley, but Shelley is responsible for the covers. And Marguerite does the desktop publishing, and then
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Hello.
Wave or something. Where are you? I don't find you, but oh, I see. Okay, wait. All right. So Robert, maybe you'd want to just continue talking about the magazine then. And if everybody could cut mute. I
don't even know where to start, but I was looking through the first issue, which was a pretty extraordinary first issue, and then some of the people who are in this issue were in that issue also, and then there were a number of people who have died since that issue has come up. So it was very emotional, just looking at that and remembering the all that went into doing that very first issue, and then and just remembering, all the weird problems that we had, and but also remembering that our very first party was in this apartment, and it was kind of amazing that so many people could fit into such a small place, and it was just, quite an extraordinary event. And there's some photos of some of you who were there that I have. Now, the first issue, there were so many times where I felt that we had, with multiple peoples, where I felt that we had come to different kinds of understandings, and it seems like we often didn't. And there was a lot of miscommunication going on, and it was happening, so much was happening that I knew it wasn't always the other person's fault, because it was happening almost every day. So, so that involved a lot of self-reflection and figuring out how we're going to communicate better, or how I was going to communicate better. And so that was like one problem. But I know that Arnie and I had been speaking about it for about 10 years, like thinking about, well, maybe we should do this. Maybe when will we do it? Arnie was not sure we should do it, but and so we kept talking and kept talking and kept talking and kept talking. And each time we spoke, it would kind of move an inch closer to it being, an active possibility. And then a couple of things happened which further spurred me on to do it. A piece of mine had been rejected somewhere, and then Gary had shown it to James Baldwin, and James Baldwin liked the piece a lot. And I said, fuck it, if he likes it, why don't we just have our own magazine instead of being like always worried about something.
Yeah, Robert, that's true.
Oh, Gary, hey, hi.
Hi.
And so that happened, and and so so we kind of became more of a possibility. And then I asked, I spoke to both Marguerite and Shelley whether they would want to be part of it. And when they both agreed, I really felt that you have these two extraordinary artists who are not only extraordinary artists, but they get things done. And so I thought with the four of us as a beginning, we actually had a lot of possibilities. And so well, Arnie's not here, but Shelley and Margarita and I have been in on it from the beginning, and Arnie also. Now, Arnie had like a tremendous powerful poetic presence and sensibility. And he also was like incredibly insecure. And he was talking about his insecurities as well as his vision endlessly. And I thought, well, maybe if we do a magazine and people can appreciate it, he'll just tone down the insecurity part. You know, so anyway, so that was one of my ulterior motives in doing this. But I also knew, having Arnie there, that it would have a kind of social seriousness just from his very presence, and that made, you know, just made me feel that there was no way this was not going to be a real possibility and a very special thing. Now, also Arnie would call up WBAI, and I think I don't know the history of the station, but I think he was one of the first callers that actually developed a following of his own. So he would call on various stations at various shows, and the host of the show had developed relationships with Arnie both there and outside. So one of my feelings about the magazine, and even from the get-go, that we had that we were going to do things on almost two different tracks that were connected on some level, but not. Between Arnie and I, we knew a lot of people involved in social political movements. We know people who had radio shows, other people who edited magazines like Liberation, and we knew some fairly prominent people in you know, leaders in political movements. So I thought that even if we did a small publication, the reach of it could go much further. Like somebody could quote a piece on their radio or invite someone on, or I think Gary told me that in the first issue, Gary and Baldwin had a conversation, which started out as Baldwin interviewing Gary, and I think it was Toni Morrison quoted that at an event. So all of a sudden, from this tiny little magazine, it just went out far and wide. And I thought that would happen over and over, you know, that could happen. But the more important reason, that was the more one that motivated me, was to try and have some people who had public platforms who would be writing or doing different things, but also people who didn't think of themselves as having a public presence in any kind, who didn't think of themselves, you know, as artists or writers or whatever, but had something to say. This would be a place where they could say it. And so one motivation was just to open it up in a big way. And because of the people we knew and our lives, and I delivered newspapers, I worked with different people, I would, you know, run into people in various situations, and often enough, you know, I listened to people, and if they said something that was interesting to me, or I thought that, I would say, would you like to write it up? And, you know, well, Mel, can I? I'm not a writer, but then they would, and it would be extraordinary. And so there was this mix of people who, you know, wrote, you know, you know, just did that, and other people who never even imagined they would do it. And then those people would have families and friends, and all of a sudden you'd be reaching into all kinds of places that a lot of other publications just wouldn't. Most of the publications would just have, you know, a narrower base, and ours would just go way out, and then pieces. And so that was the idea, and that was the idea that that, you know, that I felt could really work, and it did. And over the years, the public part of it, which is still there, is much less important than the other part, where people who might not have a vehicle have a place where something really important to them, which will be important to a lot of people, can be expressed. And so you have both, and then also people who, do that all the time. You're not going to exactly, discriminate against them and say they can't be in it, because obviously they will be in it. So those are the things. And then the other thing, which Shelley and Marguerite both over the years have been very aware of and sensitive towards too, and which Arnie and I really was a basic part of this. And our solution to these things over the years, just evolved as you learn more, as you think of things, and as people, say, well, why did you do that? Was that no piece was going to be privileged over any other, and no person was going to be privileged over any other. So at least within the confines of the magazine, there was as much equality in terms of status and things like that as is possible, or you have that in mind. It's never going to work entirely that way, and you can't control how people are going to read the pieces. So there was a real conscious effort, and sometimes we failed, but always a conscious effort to keep that in mind. And then when more artwork started to come in, then the relationship between artwork and written work was a whole set of issues that I never knew existed, which of course is part of the problem. And so that had to be addressed, and solutions evolved over the years as different people started thinking of new things and different things. Anyway, that's pretty much it for the moment. And I really want to thank everyone for being in this issue. This has been a tough one because of the pandemic. And I know that a number of people didn't even, when I sent them the last set of proofs, they didn't even remember they were in the issue. It was so long, and everyone lost touch with it, or a lot of people lost touch with it. But we did come out, and this is the first issue that that we're not meeting in person, and we don't have a huge party to celebrate, and for people to actually talk to each other. And we didn't have the other event where people came over to my house, the contributors, and pick up their copies. And often people, and it'll be a stream of people over a 2-3 day period. And sometimes, 5, 6, 7, 8 people would just stop and get to know each other and read each other's pieces to each other. So that hasn't happened. And, but I'm really exhilarated at how this issue has turned out. And I'm really thankful to everybody for being part of it. I think that's it for the moment.
You were going to say how it felt, because usually at the parties, you don't talk to anybody. You're at the table.
Oh, yeah.
Wildly, madly selling magazines.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I mean, at the magazine party, the only thing I do is sit at a table trying to sell it. And anybody that talks to me, I said, hi, I can't pay attention. And if somebody asks a question to my left, I said, wait a second. And then I turn this way, I have to get there at my left. And then people gather, and then I sort of wave everybody away so people could see the table. And so I get little fragments of people and knowing they're there. And then I remembered that I never introduced Martha to Joanne because somebody wanted to meet. And all that comes back to me about 3-4 days later, and I realize everything I did wrong, and everybody I should have introduced, and everybody who should have known better than to expect me to introduce them.
I'm trying to figure out, because we've got 2 screens here, but on the people who work, like one of the things that you talked about, Robert, was when the magazine came out, the first came out, that people were amazed that it, didn't have ink all over it, or that, and the magazine is a beautiful magazine, and it's meticulously, done. On this issue, there are 3 proofreaders, and then the team that you mentioned that when you knew you were on board, Shelley, and all those beautiful covers that you saw in the slide presentation, and then the layout of it, Marguerite, and there was a point where that I think there was you all can talk about it and you should just step in if you want to in terms of the process. My own became part of the magazine at the third, I was part of the third issue, and I've been with the magazine since then. Although and when Arnie passed, it was a period of one magazine in between, and then I became co-editor. But it's just, and it just grows and it gets bigger. I don't know how much bigger. It went from having no spine to having a spine. They're just all sorts of things. And then there's Myrna's contribution in terms of just bringing in people, and Ralph. I mean, it really is a community, and everybody on here, and the contribution. So I think we wanted to have space for people who actually work on it to talk about their process in any way they wanted. I think Shelley said she might talk about bringing in artists and that, and Robert has already acknowledged that he didn't even know the people. Shelley, do you want to step in?
Sure. Hi. Well, initially I didn't invite artists, but I'll talk about when it first started, because I remember Robert asking me, and I thought I was doing paste up, those of you that remember the time before computers, for a living, unhappily. And I was also doing sort of coordinating projects at some point. I don't remember the years exactly, but probably by the time we were doing it, I was doing a lot of work with type houses and coordinating production of various things. And I did it all freelance, and it was never done with joy, unfortunately. But I thought, oh, well, I could use those skills I learned and do something I could really care about. And then, and for me, that was a big motivator to say, okay, I have these skills. I'm not very happy at the work I'm doing. The work was basically to pay so I could be a painter. And so for me, the beginning was really, oh, great. I actually learned something that's useful for something I can care about. And so personally, that was and Robert and I were fairly new friends. We knew each other, I don't know, a few years, Robert, I'm not really sure. So that was a big motivator for me. And initially, Marguerite was doing the typesetting and taking it from her job, which she can talk about. So I was doing paste up. So paste up is rather medieval work that no one should have to ever do again. But it was what needed to be done. And because the typesetting was done, wasn't being paid for, it often couldn't be revised. So I was doing a lot of hand cutting and all this crazy stuff that was pretty insane to be doing, but it was the only way to accomplish it on the budget we had. So production wise, and I remember I was looking, like, I think we're still using the same typefaces that I chose. Maybe, well, the body type I think is, and I remember since we were doing it inexpensively and I wasn't quite sure how things would actually look when they were printed, I looked for a typeface that didn't have too much variation in thick and thin, because I knew if it was a cheap job, it could be either too light and the thins would disappear, or too heavy and the thicks would disappear. So I actually was using some expertise I had to make the initial decisions about the design. At some point, I don't remember which issue, I stopped being involved in the production part of it because my life was rather overwhelming and it was overwhelming me. And I really couldn't do it. I had to have Robert sit with me to do it. So at some point, and Robert probably knows better, I mean, I can look, but I stopped being involved in the production part of it. But also even the shape, it was a naive decision, but I'm very glad for it that, you know, it became this almost square, which the reason I did it was I thought, well, if we want extra copies, since Robert was working on such a small budget, we could at least use, I think it's 11 by 14 paper and Xerox it, right? But what that did was waste paper for the actual printing, because that's not the size of printing paper. So it was a smart decision if we were doing photo reproductions, but not a smart decision for the actual waste of paper in the the actual print run. But I actually really like the shape. So even though it was done for the wrong reason, for a reason that, didn't really need to be done, it just distinguishes it from the standard shape of publications. And that was something I really like about it. I don't know. I don't know what else. Anyway, doing the covers has been fun for me because after doing a lot of very tedious work in those early years, it's nice to not do that. I did transition to computer with Jim. I can't remember his last name, Robert.
Murray.
Murray, thank you. Jim Murray, who has since passed away. And I was very excited with the thought that, oh my God, I don't have to do paste up anymore and cut between letters and between words to make it all work out. Well, it turned out that Jim wanted to do it because he wanted to learn how to do desktop publishing. So I couldn't really teach him, but we had to learn together because every time I would say we need to do this, he thought he was doing it, but half the time he wasn't doing it. It was a trial by error learning experience of getting it to desktop. Of course, once Marguerite took that aspect on, she really knew it from her work. So that was very nice. So long gone, Jim. I don't know what issues he did, Robert. Do you remember that?
I think 2 and 3.
Uh-huh. So it was interesting process. Anyway. It's one thing computers have made easier is to produce something like this on a small budget and it can look professional. In the early years, the type was terrible. I was involved with that here, but also like even that, Jim didn't get it. I look at his type and I'd say, this is really terrible. It's like unprofessional look, it didn't look good. And that was the beginning of computers, is no one really cared what it looked like. They were just excited about the compute, that it could be digital. And it took a long time before typefaces started looking correct. And most people don't notice those things, but since that's how I was earning my living, I certainly did. And so now I don't know, Marguerite can speak. I think we're still using the same typeface. And I don't remember the name, but I chose it specifically because on a budget, I felt like it would be a typeface that would always look good. And I think the headlines also are the same, just to have some flair. Anyway.
Yeah, well, I can speak to that if that's okay. Yeah, at one point I needed some time off from the magazine. So that's when Jim came on. And again, I'm not sure how many issues he did. And when I came back on and Shelley no longer wanted to do the interior design, I felt like that would be nice and I would enjoy doing that. So part of my redesigning the interior was I wanted to keep, I wanted it to be a transitional design. I didn't want it to be a completely new design. So I wanted to keep elements from Shelley's original design, but change it. So I did keep the same typefaces as she mentioned. I changed like the headline size a little, maybe the typeface size of the body copy. I don't remember specifically, but basically I wanted it to be linked to the past, not just a new design. So that was my idea in how I changed the interior. And then at some point, I don't remember where, but I know Robert mentioned that more artwork was coming in. So I felt somehow that the artwork, in terms of how it was presented, I would like it to be more like equal footing is maybe not quite the right word, but that was my idea as the written pieces, which is why I tried to give the artwork like larger displays, titles, headlines, not just the copyright. So that was part of that idea of changing that, and also giving artists an opportunity to write a very brief statement about their work if they wanted to. And again, that's always scary because with a change like that, you don't know if people are going to just start writing epics about their artwork, which we didn't want it. We just wanted like a brief intro or description if they wanted it. So that was a change. But the thing I've enjoyed, I think, most about the magazine from my own part is when I can get to have more input into the layout. Like obviously, Robert and Carletta are the editors. So they have the whole sensibility of the magazine in mind when they're pairing pieces together. But I also find it very interesting, that pairing of what pieces go well together, what pieces really complement each other. And I enjoy being part of that process when there's that opportunity. So that for me is a very interesting part of the magazine as well. I think that's what I can say about it.
Yeah, I wanted to add that also when I was still doing the interior, that was something Robert and I would get together and be talking, you know, he and Arnie had, you know, been juggling pieces around, but when we were fitting it all together, because I was involved in the fit part when I was doing the design, we would have a lot of dialogue about how things flowed through the magazine and what was next to what. And that was nice. And Robert and I had a very different relationship at that time, because we would meet regularly when we were putting it together to get these things working. Arnie was there occasionally, but mostly I remember Robert would call him. And what always amazed me is Arnie knew exactly which piece he was talking about and where it was. It was like he had it all memorized in his head, and he didn't have to be in front, you know, sitting with us looking at it. You know, we would lay the pages out on my floor. It was like I had a small apartment, but we just sort of lay them out so we could actually see them. And he just knew it right in his head. So that was always really fascinating to me about Arnie, that, you know, he didn't need to see it. I wanted to add, because Carletta mentioned initially about inviting artists. At some point in the years of the magazine, I don't remember when, again, Robert, maybe I would have to look to see. I realized that I was really enjoying meeting all these writers and people that were politically active, really interesting people at the parties. But there was not one person there that I knew from my life. They were all people Robert had invited. And I have to say it's gotten better over the years, but initially, I don't think people really, the participants really understood what I and Marguerite and I were doing. And I felt like, oh, I was just another person there. Like no one really thought about, oh, Shelley, that's a great cover or something. No one knew who I was. I would just come and I would be one of the people milling around. And so at some point I thought, well, if I'm working so hard on this, it would be nice to invite some artists I know. And Robert had occasionally would have visuals. And I thought, well, why isn't it ever anyone I know before the magazine? So I asked him if I can just, as part of being part of it, producing it, also invite 5 artists every issue. So that's what I've done. And it may have started, I don't know, issue 4 or 5, I don't know exactly. And it was nice for me because I felt like I was bringing people in that never did things like this. You know, it was only black and white. So if their work was color, it was limited. And, you know, it's not a glossy magazine, but everyone was really happy. This issue, one woman said to me, oh, it's the first time I've ever been published. She was very excited about it. On the downside of it, I feel like most artists sort of, you know, we work alone. And I haven't been able to, I haven't repeated asking anyone. So that's part of it, because I'm always meeting someone else I want to include. But I don't find that they really feel part of the And Then family in the way that some of the writers do. But I think part of it is you're continuous friends with Robert and you're in the magazine more than one issue, whereas I don't think I've ever asked anyone more than once because there's always someone else I want to ask. So that's a little disappointing, but I understand it. But, you know, even if the people I've invited don't participate, I think everyone's always happy to be in it. So it's nice to be able to make that part of working on the magazine all these years. I think that's, so that's all I wanted to add.
Well, now, so that's really core. It's great. I mean, I enjoy hearing the story, even though you know, every time somebody tells it, you hear a little bit more of it. And also then the maybe, I don't know, what do you think, Robert? The proofreading is so important. I mean, it's just unbelievable how much it's read and read over. And it's proof just in how the care in which the proofreaders, that was one of my first things. Like I said, I've been with this since the 3rd issue, and the care with which, I think, Carol, you were the person who came to me, and it was so, you know, it's like, okay, this is Robert and Carol on the phone, and we want to ask you about this piece, and it was so respectful. You know, in the writing world, you know, you have slush piles and garbage piles, but you know, these piles are people's work, whatever you think about it. And then, you know, people come at you with how you're talking, and it's way before we're at the level, anywhere near the level of sensitivity that exists. But to have somebody really ask you about your writing and what you're saying in a way that's not saying it's wrong or right, but asking you, you know, just embracing you in where it is. And I just remember Carol with that. Carol, you want to talk, I mean, if you want to talk at all about the proofreading, and then we'll just keep going with the other proofreaders. You're on mute, Carol. You're looking for that mute button. It's the one with the little microphone. I think you have to take that cross off. Or maybe I can unmute you. Let me see. I think I have all these powers over here. Let me see. Let me see if I can find you and unmute you. No, I can only ask you to unmute.
It might be at the top of your screen. They're in different places, but it might be at the very top. There's a little microphone with an X through it.
Take your time, you'll find it. Mine is in the bottom left. Margarita's suggesting if it's not in the bottom left, you can look up at the top.
Yeah, mine is in the top right. They're all different depending on your platform, unfortunately.
Yes, we write about capitalism in the magazine and the need to have the buttons in 5 different places. I really wish I could unmute you.
Could we unmute everybody so that, but everybody keep quiet except for Carol?
We don't have, I don't have master unmute. All I can do is ask to unmute, unless I do. Bob Perrin, do I have master unmute?
I don't really know.
All it said is I could ask to unmute, but it didn't say I could unmute.
Well, try the ask button then.
I did try that. It says ask to unmute. Let me try more. Let me see more.
Maybe there's someone else that wants to contribute, and while she's still looking.
Okay, that's a good idea.
I just wanted to say, because in the break, I was just looking that I think I designed the magazine through volume 13, because when it went to perfect binding, which I was so glad that happened, that's when I wasn't working on it. And I think I started inviting people around issue 6 or 7.
Bob, do you want to talk a little bit about the proofing part? While Carol is, I see Carol and George is there looking too, looking for the unmute button.
Yeah, I can do that. But I came to Ann then very late in the game. I met Robert at a party at Patty's Christmas party some years ago, and he was selling copies of and then volume 17. And so I got a copy from him, and we were talking, and he asked me if I'd like to contribute to one of the to the next copy or the one after. So it was actually 19 that I contributed to. And around that time, I told him if he needed help, if he needed some like editorial assistance on the magazine, I was willing to help him. So he took me right up on that, and I've worked as a proofreader for the last 2 issues, and especially this last one is a lot of fun because with the proofing, you have to go back and contact the authors and make sure everything that you're doing to the piece is okay. So it's a lot of fun, the back and forth with the authors, as well as reading the pieces and reading them carefully. And the one thing is both the proofreader and the contributor that I really appreciate about this magazine is I send out stories to a lot of magazines. I have like 20 or 25 published pieces. But the thing with sending out most magazines is that everything is very impersonal. Normally you get when you send out, you normally get a rejection notice. And if you send out enough, you'll get an acceptance. But even then, when the piece goes in, it usually just kind of gets slapped in with minimal editing. And I've seen my pieces go in with where they obviously have not been proofread too. So this magazine is a community of people, both the people who work on the editorial side and the production, and all the contributors. Everybody just comes together and gets to know each other. And I really appreciate that. It's just a unique experience in the publishing world.
I'd like to just add that my friend Jim Stoller had been very involved as a proofreader for decades. And then he died a couple of years ago. But he was really an incredible person and writer and proofreader, to say the least. Yeah.
Excuse me, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, great. Okay, thank you. Well, by following the prompts and hoping for the best, I finally got back in touch. Okay, it's great to be here. Thank you. I really don't know what I can say except that as a proofreader, I see my first duty as being to the text, not to the author, and not second, maybe to the reader, but mostly to the text, to see that it emerges from the brain of the person who created it and travels safely through the ionosphere without being violated, but rather having the fullness of its meaning come through at the end, so that the author will have succeeded in what she wants to know, what she wants to do with regard to her audience. And if I feel I have helped in that, I'm very, very happy. And I have always been very, very happy doing anything I can for my dear, dear friend, Robert, and everybody else who is also very, very dear to me on the staff of the magazine. Thank you. Mwah.
Hey, how do I get to say something?
Who said that?
Me, Vincent Tomio. I'm not on the screen. I don't.
I see you on the screen.
Oh, you do? Oh,
I
that's
do.
cool.
Yeah, I was going to figure out how everybody could say, because we don't all see the same things. So I was trying to figure out how everybody could put their name in. Before, Vince, right before you say something, I wanted to say a little bit about the structure. Like you saw the slide presentation. So here's the magazine, and it holds the bureau chiefs. I remember, it's so wonderful because when you say it's a community of people, it really is. I think for a while I was from Zazen land, and it's a gift. Robert does these things that I don't know how he and Arnie came up with, but it would be a gift. And I was from Zazen land. And this time we have bureau chiefs. We have Somerville, Mass, Mark, and I don't think Mark's on here today. Then we have the Upper West Side, Bernie, and then there's Washington, Washington Muse, that's you, Carol. And then there's Bronx, Manhattan crossover, Myrna. I love these things. There's Stanford, Connecticut, Ralph, and then we have Stuytown and Points North, that's Bob Parent. And then there's a whole list of in memoriam. And I want to say this, today is my cousin's birthday. And it'll be almost a year since he passed, and he was an artist, and we will try to get one of his pieces in, but he and Robert, met several times, and so it was really nice to just include people. And when Robert talks about like including people, like the list of people are just connected. So in memoriam in this issue are Robert Lapides, Herman Lowenhar, Toby Simon, Jerry Williams, Jose Izziel Lopez, Anna Snittow, Danny Robert, Ben Zablocki, Lance D. Walker, William Fistner, and Rosa Teresa Fernandez. And then it goes on and it has the cover painting and the back and front, that's Shelley, inside cover, Jean Brown, this issue. And then desktop publishing, Marguerite Bunyan, and that's like, and then there's all the people that the thinning shoestring that Robert always talks about. I mean, it's just really, it's really just like awesome. And this list of names, and I think I'll just read the names because so many of you are probably here. But first, it's published by ourselves, edited by Robert Roth and Carletta Joy Walker, interior design by Marguerite Z. Bunyan, cover design by Shelley Hayman, constant present on Arnie Sacker. And then we have, this was put together on ever thinning shoestring. I need somebody to mute. We are enormously grateful to the following people for their labor, encouragement, advice, and love. So we have Luis Cervedio Morales, Richard Kuttner, Nancy Ross, Sophia Bendelli, Frank Murphy, Bill Cafone, Luis Benitez, Stephanie Hart, John Reed, George Spencer, Roseanne Saline, Margaret Mercer, Lennox Raphael, Hendrix von Ort, Jens Magnussen, Walter O'Beaton, Daiska Sumatsu, Nadine Laspina, Jean Brown, Joss Cray, George Joknowitz, Vincent Gian Greco, Gabby Regalado, Elsa Rizzi, Louise Rader, Tayer Akbar, Alejandra Mandelblom, Dave Niedick, Fred Kramer, Steve Sprung, Greta Hoffman-Nimroff, George Snideker, Maria Arias, Rosemary Drescher, Howard Flanzer, Ian Bolmer, Michael Roth, Michael Kranish, Joel S. Cohn, Louis Fairchild, Trudy Silver, Susan Goodman, Arlene King, Freddie Roncalli, Amber, Anton Archer, Michael Spakowski, Judith Ward, Pam Carter, Marlene Nadel, Bruce Morris, Barbara Cohn, Sonia Sayers, Andrew Field, Margaret Yard, Gary Scheinfeld, Chloe Smolarski, Vincent J. Tomeo, Sarah Biondello, and Paula McKinley. Whoa, okay. And I think I can't see all the contributors. It's small and it's tiny because we keep growing. I don't know what Marguerite's going to figure out for the next issue of these names. This is the puzzle. But it's just, and I see so many of those names on here. So yeah, I don't know what I know we have some other things that we wanted to talk about. Robert, do you have a thought in terms of people's contributions? Maybe Myrna would like to say something about.
Yeah, Myrna.
Robert, you look like you're in outer space.
It was I pushed some button and I wound up there.
Hello, everybody. I'm so happy to be here celebrating the publishing of this issue from them. And I just want to say that I haven't been in contact with and then for a long time. I think Robert and I met with Annabeth and Kurt in a party on 8th Street a long, long time ago, more than 30 years ago. And that was the first contact, and it was really great. And after that, we started talking about different ventures that we had. I was coordinating a poetry series in Brooklyn, and he started the magazine, and then he had started the magazine, and then, and so I am, like Shelley said, since when she's contributing to And Then. So I'm in And Then since.
Oh, no,
You should know not to do anything.
you're right.
uh,
Oh, no.
contributing to And Then since
How did you get back to it the previous time?
Yes.
or maybe some people have to.
Okay, I muted, it's okay. Go ahead.
And then since issue 4, but not immediately, I brought people in. And then when Roberts asked me to be a bureau chief, as he called him, like a curator. So I started thinking who to invite. And what I learned is that in the past, a long time ago, I used to think that people who are creative would be people far from me, separate, somebody I would admire from a distance. And then I started looking around and I realized most of my friends were writers. They would paint, they would help with technical issues, and poets, all kinds, dancers. And then I learned that the people that can contribute are the people around us. And so I came to the magazine and I started bringing in my friends. And those are some of the writers I see here, Sandra and Magali, I saw, and the other people. And then I contributed to other ventures. And like with Marguerite, we are working on a book that I hope that I will complete at some point. And then I also, Carol, I think, proofread some of my work in the past. And Robert Perron published in a blog a work that Robert and I are developing about dreams. And so forth. And yes, I mentioned Sandra. And Mariposa was here at some point. I think she's here too. So it became a real community, like Robert said. And we help each other. We contributed to each other's ventures, to some of the ventures. And here we are. But I think that was a big lesson for me because it taught me that really talented people are surrounding you. You don't have to go far. They are the common people you see, your friends, your acquaintances. Those are the ones who contribute to this magazine and help it make such a unique, and I really think it's amazing work. And so I'm very happy to be here celebrating with all of you. And I want to thank you for all your help in different ways and your support through the years. Thank you.
I like your hat, Carletta.
Oh, thank you. I don't know who said that, but thank you. Also, there's some, I want to just say there's some nice things in the chat. I know everybody can see them, but there are comments about about the proofreading, and someone was saying, Sophia, who's here. Hi, Sophia. I think you're on the other screen. She was saying she loved being contacted by the proofreader and how it's exciting to have another person looking at her words and working to improve the same. Just how you were talking, Bob and Carol, what you were saying was so important. And then someone said, Sonia said, I love the front use the font used for the headlines. It's like the attention that's being paid, and the appreciation of the Howard was saying about the great history of and then, and oh, and you're doing a Zoom play reading for Medicine Show. Are you using and then? Or are you doing a play about and then, or that's separate? I don't know. I don't know how I was going to answer that.
No, I think he's doing it now.
Oh, okay. So anyway, that was just interesting. But it's like there are all these chats. If you can see that, I think they will preserve the chats, because what you all are sharing is just lovely. Oh, somebody's got something here. We'd like to publish a slim anthology with students. Okay. And Robert, could you talk about? I know it was said. I think it was Ron said putting the and then in the various schools. I remember someone else. Are you the person who was putting them at NYU, because they're at one of the libraries over there? Robert, do you remember that when they first got put there?
Yeah, it was two different people. And Myrna is putting them in Boricua College also.
Okay.
I think the whole series is in there.
Okay, you're not on screen.
Oh, I don't know what happened to me.
If you're leaning back, no, that's not why you're not on screen.
Oh, I don't know.
Put your camera back on. You're in a virtual reality. So if you don't lean in, or if you don't be in a certain way, you just go off into the stratosphere.
Oh.
You see where you are? Can you see yourself?
No. That's a general condition, so.
I can see you if you just be still and talk from that position.
If you don't lean in, Robert, you look like this giant disembodied head, something like the Wizard of Oz.
Yes.
Oh, well, okay.
You need to get really close to the.
Okay.
That's much better.
Oh, I'm there. I'm here.
Yeah, you're there.
Oh, okay.
You're embodied now.
Which
my
is
God.
very appropriate with the world behind you.
Oh, yes. I don't know what to do with all this. Okay. Hi. Oh, here I am. Oh, yes. I see myself.
But lean in, like Michael said, because otherwise you disappear.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Or turn a light on or something.
That's okay. Let me turn the light on. But that's one of the reasons I love the other parties. I can just disappear behind that table.
Right.
Except. Okay.
Oh, Robert,
Yes.
I just thought
There
of
you
one
go.
more thing maybe that you didn't talk about is as the artwork has become more complex, you've been getting people to help with a lot of the like getting the art production ready before I have to deal with it. And maybe you want to mention those people, because they've been great, I think.
Well, Louis, who's been in, who was, who had once been Myrna's brother-in-law, but has remained a really close friend of his, is the person doing that. And,
Right.
And he's pretty amazing, and I'm really grateful to him for it. And, and that's one thing too, other people have, have really stepped forward in a lot of ways to really, kind of expedite, make things easier, and really have added a lot to doing it.
I don't know if he's involved anymore, but Daiska used to really
Right,
help
Dice.
a lot as well.
Yeah.
Is he
Yeah.
no longer involved, Robert?
Well, I wouldn't put it that way. I mean, he's usually incredibly there if you ask him for something or to help. I mean, one of the things in doing this also is that you, particularly with Carol in particular, you don't want to ask, if you don't have to, you don't want to ask the same people over and over to do something, I mean, if you have to, then you will. And with Carol, that's always been our, you kind of put in a position, you really don't want to exploit people's generosity, and yet you're in a situation where you count on it also. And so you're always putting some kind of balance in your own mind on asking someone, not asking them when you're going to ask and stuff like that, because, you know, some people really put themselves out all the time, and you just, even if they don't feel you're taking advantage of that, I feel it at some point I might be, so I don't like doing it. So, you know, and that's always a, you know, that's always an issue for me. And
You see Michael's comment, he says, and yet the whole of Van Then is a tremendous, what does he put here? And yet the whole of Van Then is this enormous act of generosity, which it is. I mean, this is, you know, I know we approach it as, well, it's work. It was interesting, you know, when Shelley was talking about it, and that doing this work gave her an opportunity to do something she enjoyed doing, and how both Carol and Robert talked about their proofing. You know, Carol talking about bringing, you know, what, you know, I felt the energy of bringing forth, you know, that the voice that wants to be brought forth, and Robert talking, you know, Bob Perrin talking about, you know, working with it and getting to know and that relationship. And I know in working with Robert to put this together, I mean, it's like the most, it's like not a 1,000-piece puzzle, it's like a 10,000-piece puzzle. And somebody in the chat mentioned something about just, it's the words and the writing, and you have fiction, you have nonfiction, there's music, then you have, with the artwork, you have, you know, you have paintings, you have photographs, you have, you know, other kinds of images, and then to create a cohesive flow of this is, you know, when we sit together and just take it every piece without, you know, imposing anything on them, but just having it so that in the same way that Carol talked about bringing forth the voice, each piece almost adorning each other piece as they flow, and we flow frontward, you know, as Robert says, you know, how you not privilege a piece. So we flow frontward, we flow backwards, we flow from the middle, and it's all like working it. And as Marguerite, you know, talked about, sometimes, you know, when we get it to her, then just like that eye that's, you know, hasn't been intensely looking at it, it really is an amazing thing to do. And I know Bertie on one issue, maybe more than one, like took every piece and wrote a story from beginning to end, which was like something on top of the everything else to go, you know, to take the whole flow. It's pretty remarkable. Yeah, it's a pretty remarkable thing to do and be a part of.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that this is the pleasure for me is to start at the beginning and stay with a piece until I have a thought of my own. And I've, from at least in some issues, tried to write that down before I got to the next piece, which would surprise me and make me turn my head around, and then I would have a thought about that and continue as far along in the magazine as I could. And a couple of times I managed to get through the whole magazine that way. So it's a great mind prompt, piece by piece by piece, and the flow is really as important as the pieces themselves.
It's kind of like an anthology that comes out every however often it comes out. Robert, you were going to talk a little bit about just the economics. You know, we talked about the whole community of support and how to keep it balanced. Do you want to talk about that?
It's maybe, let me think about it. It's so complex.
You're back in the stratosphere again.
Oh,
but
okay.
after that light worked for a moment.
Well, when we started, I really felt that you lay out money if the community, and the community is whoever wants it to stay alive. There's no community, just whoever wants it to be there would help us break even for every issue. And you know, and any profit we would make would go into the next issue, so that this thing can continue. And that basically has happened. I mean, it's very different. When I first started, it was very it was very easy to carry 4, 5, 6 copies along with, you know, in my backpack, and I'd have them, and I could basically just sell them. I could walk from my apartment on the west side and go to the east side and sell 10 magazines just walking, you know, approaching strangers, seeing people I knew. And I mean, it was really easy, partially because I didn't know not to do it. And at that point, if someone didn't want to buy one, fine. I mean, I didn't feel like I was really putting them on the spot or imposing something on them. But at some point you start feeling that you're invading people's space, and you started getting much more uptight about it. I mean, I started getting more uptight about it. But still, you know, even now, you know, I go to a party before the pandemic, and you know, I haven't seen the people for the year, and they say, hey, do you have them? Do you have them? And so there was still like a lot of excitement around it. And then sometimes people make donations. Sometimes people make smaller donations, like buy 2 magazines and tell you to keep the change, or buy 1 magazine and keep the change. And those things add up. I mean, they really do add up too. But basically, we're relying on the friends, the lovers, the family, the acquaintances of the contributors to you know, to buy copies. And however that happens has happened, and so that's very gratifying. And then I was just, yeah, and then you know, we have a couple of parties, and so it's always an ongoing experience. This issue, the first issue, we made 400 copies, and then we kept going up, and then we started going down again when it was harder to sell, for whatever number of reasons. It could be the internet, it could be 1,001 reasons. But now, but this issue, because of the pandemic, we went way down. We did the same amount that we did the very first issue, which was 400, and I was surprised how quickly they're selling, you know. So there aren't that many left. And now I'm in that double bind. I'd like people to buy it, but then I'm nervous because I still haven't gotten to about 5 or maybe 6 of the contributors yet. So I want to make sure we have enough for them, and also have enough just to have a stash of them, you know, 15 or 20. So it's been an interesting experience to see the steady flow out. And you know, it's but the looseness of selling it, like Bob mentioned, I met him at a party and he bought it, and then that has been harder to do for any number of reasons. I still do it, but I don't have the I don't have the looseness that I had. And then over the years, we did do some. I mean, I do have my favorite sales, you know, the ones that I like the most. So I might as well give I think it was my favorite, actually. I was at a party, and it was midnight, and a woman walked in looking very forlorn. And what happened was, it was her wedding anniversary. She and her husband, who were having trouble, were on a crowded train going downtown. She stepped off the train. The door closed behind her, and her husband couldn't get off the train, and he kept going into wherever, and never came back in the other direction. So he never took the train back. So she's telling this tale of woe, and I said, well, in that case, maybe you would like to buy a magazine. And she said, well, what is this magazine? That's exactly what I need to do. I need to buy something. And so then she bought the magazine and was like really excited by it, and it was really fun, and her spirits rose. And eventually, when I saw her the next time, she said they somehow figured out how to re-meet, she and her husband. But anyway, that was my all-time favorite sale.
Love that. We were going to maybe Bob Perrin can put in your email too, for anybody who had on the call who hasn't got a magazine.
Oh, okay.
Like one. They could either email, I guess, Robert or myself. But also I wanted to mention, Robert, because in the call, the age range of the magazine is extensive, and it always has been. It's really, and there are the people who have just sort of started out of the magazine at maybe 5 and now are like 25 or something like that. Can you want to talk a little bit about that?
Well, in the first issue, there was a piece by Herb Purr, which is about an art opening. His son Joey, over the years, has appeared in the magazine. First when he was 5, another time when he might have been 17, another time when he was 20 something, and now he's going to do a graphic depiction of Herb's story that appeared in issue 1. So that's what's going to happen, and that's pretty exciting. I mean, he's really a terrific artist, like his father was, but he does it. He does a different thing. So he's going to. So from a piece that was in issue 1, because kind of moves into another art form by his son, 34 years later.
Carletta, I want to say something. I
Yes,
think. I'm not Joe Avalos. I don't know why my rectangle says I'm Joe Avalos.
Yeah, I didn't know either. You look like Ralph.
I'm an imposter. I hope I'm not an imposter. but anyway.
Thank you, Ralph.
It's really, I can't describe it. What a pleasure it is to be with you guys. In some ways, I feel like an outsider because I'm from Stanford. And even though I'm in the magazine as the bureau chief of Stanford, that is the highest honor that I've ever received in my life. I'm not the chief of anything. I was the chief of my as a parent of my 3 children when I stayed home for 10 years. Then I was, a domestic engineer. But but bureau chief, my word, that's great. Anyway, I met Robert at, well, it's a long story. I'll cut it short. I think what's important is for me, and then is absolutely, as you've all described it, it's very, very special. It starts somewhere and then it's produced, and over a lot of burning coals and agony and misery and anxiety and joy intermixed with it. And then finally it ends in Bernie's epic, the and then epic. I mean, that's the whole trajectory of the thing. In the middle is Carol's, as she said, it's extraordinary, through the ionosphere, her intervention, and it was what she's committed to is the text. I mean, all of you have said all of these things. It's just quite extraordinary. But for me, as important as And Then is, I mean, Robert is at the heart of it. And my relationship with Robert, and this I'm sure is absolutely the case with every one of you. Okay, my relationship with And Then is only incidental to my relationship with Robert. Once I got to know him, and that's a long story, I won't bore you with all the things that led up to our friendship, is that, Robert is one of my very few confidants. So when he and I talk, our conversations could go for very long minutes, like hours, right? And everything comes out. Our politics, our personal lives, stuff that has never been divulged, stuff that had been actually forgotten, but is dug up only because Robert is at the other end. That's in the nature of a confidant. And through Robert, I got to know Marguerite Bunyan, who formatted several of the books that my small press, Jugantha Press, published, including I had the honor of publishing Robert's book, Health Proxy. And it is an extraordinary book, and it has an extraordinary cover. I think that Shelley put it together, Margaret executed the whole thing, and it's one of our prize publications. Basically, I would say those were all the highlights. I mean, my own pieces being published, and then thanks to Robert's generosity and Carol's kindness, and my publishing, Robert, all of that is there. But I think that, as I said, at the heart of it is my friendship with Robert. I can't think of, I'm going through life basically, as we all are, with a handful of absolutely indispensable elements in our lives. A handful. And among them, high among them, are our friendships. And it's so, what can I say? I'm trying to put my finger on, I suppose, life itself, because these friendships have a beginning point, and then many of them, because we continue to live, many of them are terminated because of deaths. And there is the friendship that continues on in memory. How else, if someone were to challenge me to describe my life, I would probably have multiple ways of doing that. But one of them is this way, that this life has been marked by these people whose path crossed mine, and Robert is one of them. I really think of it as a blessing. I'm thankful for it. And through him, this whole world, including Marguerite and Shelley and Carletta and Carol and Bernie, all of those people have become part of my life. Okay, and for this, I'm most grateful. This is a celebration. I'm sure each of you would probably echo all the things that I've said in terms of the importance of the world in which, the only thing that holds together is a community of friends. All the rest of it is just subject to this extraordinary, inevitable entropic process. Except friendships grow deeper and deeper and deeper. And that's the only thing that sees us through life. For this, I thank all of you, and especially Robert. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Ralph, there was something, or should I call you Joe? Ralph Joe. Whose house are you in? But someone asked about your press. What you?
The press is Yuganta Press, YUGANTA Press. I just have to tell you a quick joke about it, because the friend I was living with, very, very witty person, when I told him that I had started a press called Yuganta Press, he said, you got a press, huh?
Okay.
Carletta,
yeah.
Can I just say something very, very briefly?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, to endorse what Ralph said about Robert, because there's no doubt that in a rationally ordered universe, Robert would be one of the best known writers in the world, because Health Proxy and the Book of Pieces are just two of the most extraordinary things I've ever read. And there's it's important to say that there's this whole community of Anne then, but I think it is important to acknowledge Robert's remarkableness, because it's not only a talent for writing, which he clearly has. He sends me pieces every couple of weeks that he's written, and it's just always such a huge pleasure to reach them. But it's also this enormous talent for friendship and for nurturing other people that I think is so important about him. And just thinking about the Bernie's response to Anne then, and the whole thing about Anne then as an act of generosity. I mean, hearing Shelley talk about it so carefully about the work, hearing Marguerite talk so carefully about the work, and Carol talk so carefully about the work and so caringly about the work. There are a few things in life. I mean, going to bloody work doesn't pull that sort of care or excitement out of you, but Anne then does. And then the kind of acid test of what Anne then is about is the fact that it can elicit from Bernie this enormous response. I can't think of any other magazine in the world to which people responded in that way. It's so generous, it's so marvelous, it's so singular, and it's, I'm just so pleased that I met Robert and Carletta I'm a comparatively newcomer in these matches about 18 years ago, And the whole and then community, you know, people that I'm actually seeing physically for the first time tonight have become part of my life. What a gift it is.
Thank you.
Michael, Robert got from Howard that this contest for opera, right? It was like it's supposed to be 5 minutes or something. What was it supposed to be, Michael?
The children's opera.
100 words.
100 words.
And it was paid at $1 a word.
Right. So Robert, I was visiting Robert, and then we start going crazy on this opera for you, which we sent and which got included. It was wonderful because that became the start of our international community. And both of us at different times went over to England to for the launch of that. And then there was the forest outside of London that I remember I wrote something for the forest, and then you've just gone on. And then Robert, Sonia, and I did something that we were in. It was just like incredible. So I mean, it really does like blossom in terms of like this, like, you know, this community thing, and people just keep knowing each other. And it really is. Robert, how many people usually, I think I remember when I first started with the magazine, there were always like 5 or 6 countries represented or something like that.
Probably more, you know, quite a few. Yeah, quite a few.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
Carletta, I just want to say something that goes back to the early years of the magazine, because Joel Cohen, who is here tonight, and I haven't seen you in a long time, he had the Ragged Edge Press, and we were all not knowing really how to do this. And I remember he would let me go through whatever paper he had. So he printed it initially. I don't remember how many issues. And we'd go visit him at his press downtown. And in order to save money, we were always trying to, you know, like, well, what paper did he have extra of that would be special for the cover? And the cover initially was very limited. I mean, now we're doing full color, you know, digital just made everything less expensive and just made good quality. But anyway, Joel was great. He would show me, you know, he had this pearlescent paper. And so if you look at the early issues, the covers, every one of them was a different paper. And we'd go through the possibilities based on what I was thinking about for the image, which was always more graphic because we didn't really have the printing capability we have now. So I was doing much more graphic images. And now things are much more standard and, you know, it's beautiful. But it was really a fun part of the process to just, you know, meet Joel with his own crazy sideline business, you know, with some of you know his pads and the various illustrations he's collaborated, etc. And so I just want to acknowledge that because I remember initially I really had never put together a magazine. I did type and I sort of, whatever a job asked me to do, I would figure out how to do it. But this was something I was doing out of love. And Joel educated us a bit and it was fun. So.
Thanks.
Carletta, I want to quickly say that the copies of And Then landed in Sing Sing maximum security prison because I have been a volunteer instructor there for years. So a whole bunch of copies of And Then are there, as well as in the hands of students at Nassau Community College. Robert would give me bunches of, you know, old issues of the magazine. So I just wanted you to know that this writing has been disseminated, has been dispersed in areas that most people would think highly unlikely. And your writing, our writing, has touched the lives of people who are immured, people who are in great pain, and to whom probably a fragment from And Then brings some relief, if not joy.
Thank you. And also, as well as getting into the prisons, the writing from prisons, in this issue and has been in several other issues, is the work of Kenyatta, who is listed as Kenyatta, prisoner number 74A3701. And, you know, if many of us have difficulty with whatever it means to being in the writing world, being incarcerated. So, and thanks to Sophia Bendelli, who is, I think, was on the call. I have to change screens to see, but you know, the collaboration there and having his work out in the world, and then now that has morphed into a whole other set of collaborations and information as well. But it, you know, so it serves a purpose in. I mean, it's an important venue in so many ways, and just Robert, when you started off, when the slide presentation was on, talked about the emotion of things. When I first met Robert, I was doing a talk, and Arnie and Robert came to the talk, and Robert sent me, I don't think he had but he sent me 2 issues of the magazine, and I read that, I read them cover to cover, and I was just moved. I still remember Gary's piece, and you know, we deal with so many issues, but the sensitivity that he dealt with, you know, this issue on the subway with the little girl, and just her crying, and that it was just, I mean, I don't know, it was just extraordinary. The sensitivity of Gary, the sensitivity of writing what he was writing about, the very I don't know, whatever you want to call them, the race, gender, power, class, all those kind of things that are involved in issues. His attention to just this little girl who was just, you know, in a state, and her mother was in a state, and to be able to just be okay to write about that was just really, that just totally caught me, as well as the many other pieces and the artwork, you know, in the magazine. And it has maintained that. There's a way in which you know, people are invited. And you know, there's going to be a place for that depth. My one of my godchildren, you know, did a poem, and it was extraordinary. I mean, and to just not even have to think about where it would have a place, where this brilliance coming from, you know, this 14-year-old was just extraordinary. And that happens just time and time again. It's just, you know, it's just a blessing that it's here.
Oh, Carletta, hi.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for mentioning that. That's very nice.
Oh, is that you, Gary? I don't see you, but I hear you.
I know I'm on Judith's thing, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it was, you know, I'm very moved. And we still have to go to the horse races.
I'll tell you something interesting. The Baldwin conversation. I showed James Baldwin Robert's magazine, one of his articles. And James Baldwin looked at his article and he said, "This is seeking it." That's what Baldwin said about Robert's piece in the magazine. He said, "This is seeking it." Which is quite a compliment from James Baldwin. But thanks for mentioning that thing about my piece that I wrote. You know, I've known Robert for about 40 years, longer. Right, Robert?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we and another friend were undefeated in 3-on-3 basketball for a year in various playgrounds and schoolyards around the city. And I have to say, both Gary and Steve were the basic reason why. But I didn't guarantee a defeat, so that was my big contribution. But they were just extraordinary athletes and players.
Good too. Yeah, that was, well, I spent my years in the projects, and I played basketball when I was younger, you know. But yeah, I put a few pieces in Robert's magazine. It's nice to see everybody. I'm on Judith's. But thanks for that compliment, Carletta.
Yeah, you're quite welcome. I didn't know you were still on, but so yeah, thank you. Well, thank you. I thank you for the piece. It still resonates with me. It's just an extraordinary piece.
I'll tell you something funny. This is about 40-something years ago. Robert and I were in the 14th Street subway station. And we were having an argument about something, a discussion about something. And we're trying to get out of the train station. And the door down in the train station says not for admittance. So we assumed that was how you get out. So we went through that. That was the door that entered you into the subway. It said not for admittance. And we went through. That was about 45 years ago. Yeah, but I was always telling jokes to Robert. Anybody want to hear a joke?
Yes.
Okay, this is a joke. Sister Agatha. Okay, Sister Agatha is a Catholic school nun, and she teaches the 3rd grade. So she says to Beverly, Beverly, what do you want to be when you grow up? And Beverly says, I want to be a nurse. So Sister Agatha says, that's wonderful. And Robert, not this Robert, Robert, what do you want to be? I want to be a fireman. Oh, that's terrific. And Betty, what do you want to be? And Betty said, I want to be a prostitute. What? What'd you say? So I want to be a prostitute. Oh, thank God. I thought you said Protestant.
Good one. Good one.
It's cute, right?
Yeah, it's cute. Really cute.
That's great.
Okay, with the jokes beginning and going wherever they're going, do we want to does anyone? I mean, there's a whole community of people, and I know there are many voices, and I want, you know, I couldn't figure out how people could get their names in an orderly way. So I put a lot of the names in from the magazine, but people have been speaking up. But is there anything someone wants to also add in terms of the magazine and their experience and connections?
Well, let me just say, Robert, I have to go now, everybody. Nice talking to you.
Take care, Gary.
Okay.
Yes, I would like to say that I love the fact that you can have a conversation with Robert about anything, and he would say, write that for the magazine. What? That happens so often. So many of my pieces were just casual conversations that ended up in the magazine. I just really appreciate him. And you know, talk about longevity. You know, Carletta and I have been friends forever, but I don't know if I met Lily Allen before I met you. But Lily Allen is on this Zoom. But it was meeting Lily Allen, what, 40 years ago at Spelman? And then for the Black and Female Workshop, and then Carletta, and then, you know, having a whole, that reality, and then the incarceration reality with my partner, Kenyatta. This is his 43rd year of incarceration, and his pieces and his artwork, you know, appear in And Then. But the thing about Robert saying, write that, I was talking to him about another prisoner who something had happened to him. And I think I had gotten a letter, a strange letter, and Robert said, put that in the magazine. So the letter from that prisoner appeared in And Then. So I just appreciate that. And it's the kind of way you can pick it up and open it and start reading, and anything that you land on is just really beautiful and different and great. So I'm just totally appreciative for And Then, and my long time friend, Carletta Joy Walker.
Thank you for that. And it is so true. I mean, Robert really is, you put it in the magazine, and the depth, you talk about what you get from doing that, and what happens to people. One of the children, young persons in our Be Present community you referenced, she went to Argentina and she kept a journal, which got published in And Then. It was just, I mean, and it was extraordinary to read this journal that she had done. I mean, it's just gems. I've been going back. It's like, you know how it's like, at some point I feel like I'll probably have to stop buying things. I'm not at that point yet, but it doesn't matter. I could just read and read and read. I was looking for something. Actually, it was Marguerite. I was looking for a piece of it that Marguerite had written, and I had something alerted me to something. And then I found this whole other set of pieces. I mean, it's just the richness. And then you find out people know people from other places. I think like with Eugene and I went to the same Buddhist temple, and I don't know how we found, so we ended up in the same place. I think it was at an And Then function as well. What roads did we take to get here? I mean, it really, right? Absolutely. So it really is something.
Carletta, I think Joel is ready to play.
Oh, Joel, okay, go ahead, Joel.
He's
But
in
you have to
mute.
turn, you have to unmute.
Unmute. So, this is a song I would say very much in the NN spirit and in the Sticker Dude spirit. I love, one of the things I love doing is taking songs that I like and redoing them to my own specifications. I did it live at an NN party. I forget which issue. I took a Ray Corona song and rewrote it, and then Ray came up and sang it with me. Unfortunately, this artist is gone. His name was Warren Zevon, and he wrote this terrific song about war, and it covered the historical period from 1966 to 1975. But it was a terrific. I felt it was a terrific emblem of violence and war. So I decided to update it and bring it up to date. Roland was a warrior, another week of war. Norway's bravest son. Time stood still for Roland till he evens up the score. They can still see his headless body stalking through the night. In the muzzle flash of Roland's Thompson gun. On and on he morphed. The decades ooze like mud. Names and places change, but always guns and blood. Iraq, Iran, West Texas, and a mincemeat Charlotte church. Roland's blind, but his shooting's fine. He bequeaths us his worst. Roland's blind, but his shooting's fine. He bequeaths us his worst. Roland, the headless Thompson gunner, begets another and another. Roland, history's bloody rudder, stands in the midst of buzzards aflutter. Roland drags them from the gutter. Even the demons pause and shudder. On and on he morphs. Decades ooze like mud. Names and places change, but always guns and blood. Iraq, Sudan, Las Vegas, and a mincemeat Birmingham church. Out of his mind, but his shooting's fine. He bequeaths us his worst. Out of his mind, but his shooting's fine. A legacy and curse. Thank you for letting me do that.
Absolutely.
How about a little humor?
Well, we kind of want, who's that? Who's going to give?
Vincent Tomio.
Okay. While you're doing humor, maybe we'll do the slide presentation because we're winding down again and now it'll make more sense.
Okay.
Okay.
Yes. Tell me when.
Okay, why don't you go and then I'll put the slides on.
Okay. The uselessness of hippopotamus. Disturbed, it will charge like a 2-ton Mack truck, crush you in a bowl and chew you into pieces. Blubber in water, who hears with its petite feet, funny little stubs, 4 legs, 4 feet, a commanding, pompous size, roaming the river. Its tiny, humorous ears wave and flutter. A wonder it hears at all, as it waddles in the mud, dunking while taking in the sun to catch some rays. It becomes a dining table for birds and other living things. Here it comes out of the water to graze, eating the grass, dropping its dung for other beasts to munch. This is lunch. Paving a route, creating streams, roads for other animals to navigate their way. I've been to Africa. I love Africa. I've been to many safaris, and I plan to go on one in 2022 to Rwanda. So that's the hippopotamus, which I saw, and they're amazing animals. Anyway.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And now that I think that the slideshow even you can even deeper appreciation for all the these issues.
Oh, I love this. A collage. Wow.
Very nice.
I love it on in the answering machine, Robert, the beautiful magazine and then. So I think we've, are there any more final, Robert, you want to have a final word?
No, just it's just really wonderful being with everyone, and hopefully next time we can actually get together in person, but and maybe Rosemary and Michael can come over at that point and celebrate in person.
Somebody asked, how did the name and then come into being?
Do we have, okay, let me see if I can do the really short, okay. Arnie and I were trying to come up with a title, and everything we thought of was horrible. And then I started writing them down, and I had 2 pages of terrible titles and nothing even close to a good title. I mean, not even a semi-good title. Nothing was happening. We couldn't think of it. Then I went with my friend who was from Japan, and we went to a movie. And I asked her what was the name of the movie because it was in Japanese, and she said, Now and Then. And I said, well, wow, do you think And Then would be a good title? And she laughed and she said, I think that would be a good title. And then I asked 11 people what they thought. 10 thought it was a great title. 1 thought it was an okay title. And okay was much more enthusiastic than anybody would have given for the hundreds of other titles. So even the lukewarm title was a positive, and 10 people really liked it. And so that basically is how we got the name. But then about 10 years later or 15 years later, someone actually said the name of the movie was And Then, not Now and Then. So we got it by a mistake. Anyway.
Then,
Best kind.
Can I say
Great
something?
to play with too. Oh, Mirna, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, I just want to say that I am appreciative of Andem because I met very intelligent and very, to me, talented and wonderful people. And one of them, Carletta, is you. And, you know, I appreciate and like your art and your enthusiasm about everything. And also, Stephanie Hart was around, but I didn't see her anymore. And then, you know, Robert was, of course, he contacted Stephanie and I, and then we thought of a press together. And it's just been a great journey. And thank you so much for a wonderful event.
I'd like to add my voice to that for the wonderful event and for the wonderful story of and then the whole thing. And I'm so pleased to have been in it a few times and so pleased that I've known Robert for a long time, and our friendship has gotten better over the years. It's grown even more. And he's a treasure, and so is Andan.
And may I say something? And then is very democratic. It offers something for everyone, and it's a wonderful magazine. I would like to wish everyone a happy holiday in whatever you celebrate and however you celebrate, and in good health.
I also want to say, I just saw one of my nieces on the phone, on the Zoom, Bindu, whose valedictorian speech was be published, and my other niece is in this current issue. It's really a family magazine, and when I was thinking about them, I have to bring up Kato, Robert's mother, and a dear friend, who is just extraordinary. The excitement of her, one of the ones I remember is she was so excited. We were having the and then party at Westbeth, and she was in a wheelchair. I thought she was going to go through the door. It was like she just had such exuberance and stuff, and her pieces were just extraordinary, and just part of the overall connection is like, just like that spiraling out and inclusiveness. And she was just amazing. An amazing, she was also a doyen, and her appreciate the art talks we had were just extraordinary. So yeah, bringing her in the room and all of us. And Oliver just showed, Oliver was born into Anden, right? Hi, Oliver.
Where is Oliver?
On my screen, bottom right. Talk, Oliver.
Hey, you just unmuted.
Hi.
Hey, hi.
Nice to see you all.
Well, Oliver has sat with me at many and then parties, and is a magnet for people buying it, I have to say. And he's appeared in many of the issues, so it's really good to see you. And thank you for all those years of keeping me company.
Thank you. It was great to write in it. Get published.
We have another piece, right?
Which one?
One about Myanmar.
Yeah.
The promise.
I'm writing a piece about Myanmar now. Promised to a kid I was friends with when we went there in like 2013, I think, and writing it kind of for college and just like an article to have.
Oh, wow. No, maybe for the next issue.
Yeah, that would be cool.
That would be great. That would be great.
You know what's interesting is it's kind of multimedia. So he like inserted audio in it, and if you have like electronic, do you do electronic version too?
No, not yet, but some people have been talking about it, but maybe we could put a link to it or something, but it would, I mean, a written link.
Yeah.
Well, why don't we talk about it? That's by the time we come out with the next issue, who knows where we will be in terms of anything. But that would, okay, let's discuss that further. But that would be wonderful.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Any more voices?
We're getting.
So we can all sing. Now it's time to say goodbye.
And my
Friends and family.
Okay, thanks.
Now it's time to say goodbye.
I hear somebody singing it. Somebody knows. Yes, and then everybody who has, I have mine up here. Oh,
I
look
have mine. Here is and then we say goodbye.
Night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, Carletta,
Thank you,
Robert,
Robert.
Myrna. Nice
Thank
to see you again.
Good night.
Good
Nice
night.
to see everyone tonight.
Everybody be in good health.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely.
Great to see you all.
Enjoy.
Bye-bye.
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 Oh, then, hi, Marlene.
I love your hat.
Thank you. Whoever said that, thank you.
Vincent.
Oh, now we got one screen.
One screen.
Nice to meet you, Carletta. Thank you, and thank you, Robert.
Hey, hi, it's good to
Nice
see
to
you.
meet you. It's so nice to put a face to names, you know. It's like you have this relationship with pieces.
Definitely.
Nice to
It's
see
wonderful.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
Great
It's
job.
great to see
you.
you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.
Hi, Maria. There's so many events. I'm looking at George and thinking about the piece you did at the memorial for Arnie and the piano and the whole thing. That was very lovely. Yeah. So many connections. Eugene's and then is dancing. There's Greta. Where's Greta? We would have asked everybody where. There are a lot of people both in and out of the cities. We had 2 from England, right?
Yeah. And then from various states, definitely.
Yeah.
I think we should.
Everybody had their magazine at the ready.
For some reason, my letters are turning backwards.
We see them backwards, but I see it correctly. Like you see mine, yeah. It has something to do with how it shows up.
All right.
My 6 o'clock alarm just went off.
Okay,
All
thank
right.
you.
Okay.
Thank you
Good night.
all. This was
Bye.
wonderful.
Good night.
Okay, good night. I'm gonna see Bob Perrin. I can save these chats. Do I have to do anything to save them, or are they already in the cloud? Because I think they would be nice to have.
I'll have to, I'll probably have to do something with it because it's on my account.
Oh, you know what? I'm gonna cut and paste them. And then you do that too, because you'll probably get it in a format that's better than what I'm cutting and pasting. But just so we don't lose it. I'll tell you when I've got it captured. Okay, I have everybody, and then I guess I could get a list of everybody who came as well. Let me see if I can do that. So we can just have everything. Oh, I can't do that anymore because they're gone. Okay. It's so great to see you, Mirna.
Very good to see you. It's funny. Bye.
Okay, I'm gonna sign off.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, I'll see you, Carletta.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Robert.
Take care, Bob. Thank you,
Okay.
everyone. Okay, I'm going to go back.